Good morning, afternoon, or evening, folks, and welcome to Cast of All Trades. I'm your host, Orion Siebert, and in this episode, I sit down with student entrepreneur and the founder of Date Discover, Kaleb Cheek. We share our thoughts on business and dig into some of the different tools, skills, and methods that go into starting a business. Learn how Kaleb took Date Discover from a disbanded school project to an app with active developers and the skills that allowed him to do so. Kaleb, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I don't know how much we've interacted on and off throughout. Like, I feel like we've just kept on brushing past each other on campus. But, I guess stuff happens and we're finally able to chat about business stuff. So, first of all, Kaleb, who are you and what is it that you actually do?
Perfect. Other than the fun last name of Cheek, which I had my fair share of bullies growing up, I am a student. I am a husband. I've been married for 3 years. That's definitely been the thing that's most exciting for me. I'm in my final semester at Utah Valley University, so I'm finishing strong with business management, and I'm just looking forward to what the future holds for me. As of right now, I have 4 jobs, which keeps me pretty dang busy. But I think all those are, while they're time consuming, they've helped me find opportunities that I wouldn't if I were to keep one. So I have no complaints while it's very busy. I just look forward to knowing that no matter what happens, I always have something planned that day.
Well, 4 jobs. Sorry, but what do you do?
Yeah, no problem. So I would say the job I work the most hours is for I work at Lowe's, like the house improvement store.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'm spending about 27 hours a week on. I normally do early mornings to early afternoons, and then I go take care of my other stuff. So as far as the other jobs, I'll try to keep this as simple as possible. I have 2 jobs working at Utah Valley University. One of them is as a data analyst, and I work for the Entrepreneurship Institute, which you've probably passed a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And what I work there is working on outreach, finding what are effective trends to bring in businesses, whether it's a student business or a general public business, and finding those trends to um, help them receive the support and the resources that the Entrepreneurship Institute provides. I am also a project manager for a program called Excellence Through Innovation Initiative, which means that businesses are able to go to UVU and say, I don't have a team to run my business. If I apply, can you create a team for me? And so I'm on 2 teams. I'm on one working on my own personal business as the project manager, and also working as a project manager for another business. So I don't consider those, I just consider those one job just as a project manager. And then my last one is working on my own personal business.
All right, and uh, I've heard bits and pieces about this personal business that you do, but I guess tell me what is that? What is that personal business that you're working on, or is that still kind of hush hush for now?
No, that's totally fine. So my business is called Date Discover, all one big word.
All right.
And long story short, I believe that couples, there are plenty of, I'll put it this way, there are many apps that help you find a person to go out on a date with, but there are very few apps to help you find the actual date to go on with said
Ah,
person.
okay.
And so I don't mean this as like for single persons, right? What I mean for this is people who've been married for 50 years. And maybe they've been going to a restaurant for every Friday for the last 50 years, which is great. That's their tradition. But maybe they need to find something a little bit more personal and different. There's also couples who, in my case, were my wife and I were dinks, which means double income, no kids. But since we're both working all the time, we don't have the ability to sit down and say, what do you want to do tonight? Or when are you free next? There's not a lot of solutions that streamline the process of here's a fun, personalized date experience for me and my significant other. So the way that it works, it's a program that says based off your personal interest of you and your significant other, you could be boyfriend, girlfriend, engaged, married, whatever it is, you put in those interests, and every single time we'll come up with a new personalized date for each of these couples.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like something like that would for sure take so much of the stress off of just trying to plan consistent date nights, or could provide a good new opportunities for people who may have just gotten stale after a while. But yeah, that seems super cool. So, uh, tell me a bit about your story. How did you go from a know nothing student to running your own business?
Yeah, I need to stress that as much as I am doing all these wonderful things, it's still a lot of it's just walking in the dark. It's when I first started out, I didn't understand a lot of things, tax structures for my business and hiring and retaining talent. There were just so many things that I was just, a little step by step, uh, finding on my own. And I'm still at that process today. When I had a team meeting 2 days ago for Date Discover, I remember asking about a certain issue, and my development team was explaining it to me what the problem was, what the solution is, and I barely understood them. Right? They just speak another language when it comes to web development, program development that I just did not understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I think that comes with part of my journey is, and I really love your podcast of Jack of all trades, um, where at least when I interpret it, it's I will take a little bit of everything and I will um, use that to better my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm a master of it. If someone asks me about, JavaScript or Python, I can talk about it for a second. I can say this is the program we're working with. This is why we work with it. But if you're going to say, um, let's talk about code, that's something I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've always tried to do as my journey is I always go to the people um, that I feel that they know what they're talking about, and I always try to include them in my personal circle.
All right. So, from your experience, it seems like, well, for one, I feel like we do business very differently. I feel like I'm much more of a solopreneur. I love being hands-on with everything, like digging my fingers into all of it. Well, you seem to be more of the project manager type, where you're good at bringing the talent in, bringing people together, and sort of doing the delegating. Do I sort of get that right?
Yeah, and I have to commend the solopreneur approach because I think the mentality and the effort that goes into it is significantly higher than, let's just say, the project manager approach. I I remember trying to develop this on my own, and whether that meant I would hire someone to take care of that for me, or um, me trying to bootstrap and create the project on my own, it is very tough. And you have my applause on that one.
Oh well.
I just the way that I feel excited about a project is when I get to share that energy with someone else. Like I'm very passionate about my project. Like Date Discover, I've put so much time and effort into it, and I can talk for hours, which I'm not planning on doing on your podcast. But I feel that satisfaction more when I talk with somebody else saying, "This is my idea. I want you in on this. I would love your input." That's where I feel that's where my passion comes from. And being the solopreneur, you have those opportunities for sure, but I just never found my niche, finding both of those, my passion and then the solopreneur approach.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just two different ways of doing business. Likewise, I respect what you're doing because I'll be honest, I cannot stand working with people for the most part. 'Cause I'm someone who has to know what's going on. Like I feel like I'm very micromanagey. Don't get me wrong, I can delegate stuff out, but the level of trust in order for me to actually do that, it's it's difficult. But I want you to take me back to day zero of Date Discover when it was just an idea floating in your head.
Yep.
What like you get this idea that popped into your head. What did you start with? What did you do at first?
Yeah, so originally, I'll give a little context with the origin. I used to be a student at Brigham Young University, and for a class, we had to present a business idea. And the the topic was notice a problem you see around campus. And we thought, and this group, so there were five of us on this team, and we said dating. Is the worst, right? And we just had that general idea, and so we came up with an idea that was more of how would I say it? Kind of like a Groupon or Eventbrite. Just hey, here are fun dates, um, with also matchmaking people. You both like watching this, watching movies at the theater. We can put you two there, and so it was more of a matchmaker of people to a certain realm of interest. And we won a grant because we had the best project, and we were super excited. And so we're like, all right, we're gonna go ham on this. We're gonna put all of our time and money in. And then within a month, there were only two of us. And then within 6 months, there was only me. And I said, well, if I think this is such a great idea, why would I stop like everyone else did?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember just floating for a while, just like, man, I'm on my own. This sucks. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just have my idea. And so, with due time, I transferred to UVU, for other reasons, and I started taking entrepreneurship classes, business management classes, and I was like, wait, so I can actually do something with my idea. And I just remember talking with professors, talking with other students, where at Utah Valley University, I just felt like everyone was so open with their ideas. There wasn't this competition. It's saying, hey, I'm really excited about my idea, and this is this idea. And I was like, wait, we can do that here? And as soon as I went into the Entrepreneurship Institute and people said, hey, this is an idea, cool, you got a lot of work to do. But at least we can show you a way of going about that. And, I started working closely with the Entrepreneurship Institute, and just from there, just so many opportunities blossomed.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So from the sounds of it, it's your origin stories are along the lines of you started a group. Well, this was a group project at first, and we all know how school group projects go, where
Yep.
eh, it'll be rough. Someone might have a great idea, and then people will just sort of go along with it for a while. But it sounds like something actually came of it, and you briefly touched on you guys won a grant for your idea. How the heck did that happen? Because when I think of business stuff, getting grants is not the first thing that I think of.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, for the most part, Ryan, I am very thankful that almost I've paid zero money into my personal projects. And the majority of that is because of grants. And so I'm a big grant guy. I am someone who has a very financially minded wife, who I'm very grateful for. But the second I say, I want to invest some of our money into this project, she's like, get out of here. You're not spending any of our hard earned money. And, that was really frustrating at first. And that's kind of why I had that stalemate. It's, man, I really want this idea to grow, but that means I have to put some money into it, but I don't know where that money's going to come from. And so with BYU, it came out to all that we had to do was present our idea to a convention. And it's saying all it was is just business ideas. I think maybe one or two people had an actual business, but the majority of them were just business ideas. And all we had to do was pitch and answer some questions. And so when we won Best of Show, like most creative judge's favorite, I think was the actual award. It was something that was really for us. It's like, whoa, this is a very viable path, and we can use grant money to pay for everything. Let me tell you, $1,000 does not last as long as you think it does.
Yep, I can agree with you there. So,
But oh, sorry, go ahead.
now you go for it.
I I think one thing I'm really grateful for when it comes to being a student entrepreneur is one, being a student, which means you're already so frugal that, you know, there's always a cup of ramen for dinner if you're really that hungry or wanting to save that much money. There's a level of determination that I feel like is, or resourcefulness, maybe a better word, than I think some people realize, that even students realize. There's just a scrappy nature that is underutilized for students, whether they're entrepreneurs or not.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you touched on a couple really important and really key ideas in your origin stories there. One was the financial scrappiness of it, where a lot of people, when they think about starting a business or trying to bootstrap something, they think, oh, this is going to be expensive. Like, I don't know where this money's coming from. I don't know what I'm going to do. And when you guys were presented with that problem of, oh, we can't, like, or my wife doesn't approve of me putting money into this, which, fair enough. It's like, instead of giving up and saying, I guess we're not doing it, you said, okay, what can we do instead? How can we get this money? And you decided to go out there and try something where I think a lot of people will often approach starting a business. They'll get to a certain point and then they'll say either, "Oh, like this is too difficult for me to do. I'm going to stop and this is for someone else," which for some people that's the right choice. But for other people, if they could just work their way across that barrier, work their way through those some of those problems, not only are they going to get a better product in the end. For example, you guys won Best of Show from that competition. That certainly showed that you guys had some market viability, that this is something people want. And on top of that, you got a bit of funding for it. Maybe not much, but a little bit to get you kick-started. So I feel like that whole scrappy nature that really shines through in your story. And then another aspect that you briefly touched on that I think is highly underutilized in the world of business, or I guess just in skills in general, is going out and finding mentors or finding people to communicate with. You went and found the UVU Entrepreneurship Institute, and like, what sort of benefits did that do for you?
Yeah. So, and as a current employee now, I just cannot stop raving about this institute. And anyone, whether you're a student at UVU or across the country, there really is a position for everyone to receive the input. So, starting when I came in, I just said, I have an idea and I have no idea what to do with this idea. And And they said, that's okay, because that's about 90% of the people who come in. It's not people who already have a business and they're looking for input. If they did come, that's totally fine. But a lot of students have great ideas, but then they lose interest, they lose passion, or there's just too much going on. But the Entrepreneurship Institute said, okay, now that you're here, let's have a meeting right now. And I was like, right now, I have class in 15 minutes. They're like, well, that's fine, but if you're here right now, it's because you wanted some answers right now. And that's something that really impressed me with one of the coaches there. So the way that works is that you have business coaches or peer mentors, and they're the ones that are kind of helping you behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went in with my idea, and they said, "This is great. This is a cool idea. Let's get into the nitty gritty." And I said, "Okay, what's nitty gritty? All right, who's your target audience?" And I said, "Anyone who's in a relationship." And they said, "No, you got to break that down even more. Like that's great that anyone who is in a relationship can use it, but that's not who you're gonna successfully target." And I said, "Whoa, dang, this whole business thing's hard." And it got me really thinking. I just had to sit there for a little bit, and I said, "I think young parents." And they're like, "Okay, why do you think young parents?" And I said, "Young parents, it's very stressful. They're short on money. They're short on time. These are people that benefit." And they said, "Great, that's a great start. We can look into that and perform some market research, and we can either double down on that or we can kind of pivot." And then they said, "What's your way of making money?" I say, "People buy my app." And they're like, "Well, are you gonna do $5.99 on the App Store?" And I said, "I don't think so." And they said, "Why not?" And it's like anytime you see a cost on the App Store, it automatically causes you to become more reluctant to buy it. But you see, I'll give an example, like Candy Crush. Candy Crush is free. You can download it. But every time you mess up on a level and you want that redo and you're so close, you can pay 99 cents. And people are cashing that out all the time. You have those suburban moms, they're so close to beating the neighborhood, and they'll spend that 99 cents. Once you get into the application, it's so much easier to invest in it because you've seen the value of it.
Mm-hmm. If you can
And
get
so it's like,
immediate value and remove friction, it makes spending a bit easier.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's conversations like that. I was like, whoa, this is not just um, hey, here's a brochure, here's a mentor I can guide you to. But these were people that got down into the deep and they said, okay, now that you have business model and you have target audience, how are you going to build your product? And then it's like, well, that's what I'm really here for. And they say, okay, great, we have these opportunities for you. And so they showed me a bunch of different pitch contests. That's where I won other grants, or showing up to prototyping events and being able to meet teams, or applying for competitions and winning a certain benefit, such as a project manager. Or there's just so many things I can go on about that, by putting in the work that's really annoying at first. Like I can tell you, I can almost recite my business pitch off my head. It's about 8 minutes, and I can repeat almost word for word because I've given it so many dang times that it's a part of my mantra. Just just putting myself out there with all that.
Yeah, well, if it's at the top of your head, why not? Give us your business pitch. Let's hear it.
I wish I had my slides on me right now. So I go in and say, okay, title page, and it says date discover, where we want you to date better. And then I go in and I say, one thing we all can agree on, dating apps are simply the worst. They're the worst because they're focusing on the wrong thing, finding another person. What they don't do great at all is finding the date that you and your significant other can go on. During this presentation, I want to focus on the three big questions about Date Discover. The how, sorry, the why, the how, and the what's next. And the how comes from the kind of the backstory of my grandma. The day I got married, she said, Caleb, if you want to have a successful relationship with your wife for the rest of your life, you need to learn how to always love your wife and go on dates with her. And I said, okay, that's easy. Now I'm 3 years into dating and uh, my wife. It's like, this is not easy sometimes, right? It's not always just, hey, let's watch a movie or something like that. And, there's some times that when you don't have great dates, you don't have these great emotional experiences with one another, it's actually detrimental to your relationship. And so that was a problem that we noticed. And we go into, well, what is a solution to that? And then we say Date Discover. And we talk about what Date Discover does and why Date Discover resolves these issues. And then we go into how the program works, how it's different from our competitors. And so some competitors you might hear, and I hear this all the time when I get these pitches. What about the Adventure Challenge book? It's a great book. I bought it. My wife and I scratched off 3 different dates, and there's over 150 in there. It's just we didn't want to have to sit down every single time, scratch off a date, and then, it'd be a date like, go to the park and feed the ducks. Like, I don't need to buy a $60 book in order to figure a date something like that. And, I just looked on how I can make my dating experience better with my wife. And when I said that's my problem, I need to make sure that's a problem for everyone else. And so I've conducted a bunch of focus groups. I've conducted in-person surveys and things like that. And, I'm at over 200 responses with all these aggregated. And, I would say 96, 97% of it says my dating experiences could be better. That's ranging from people who, are 18 to 99, saying that they would do well having a product facilitating their dating experiences.
All right. So, yeah, certainly. I can see that you've put a lot of work into this idea of Date Discover, and you've crafted it. You've worked on this idea. You've pitched to people. You've worked with them, and this whole thing comes with a whole set of skills that you've developed over who knows how long you've been working on this. So, over the years, what have been some of the skills that have helped you most with, I guess, growing and working on Date Discover?
Yeah. I would think of immediately 2 that come to mind. It's adaptability and network. And if I had to rank the 2, I really couldn't, because I feel like some days I need to be way more adaptable than I need to be social and with my outreach. And other days I need to be social and network with a lot of amazing people and not worry about adapting. I think what was most beneficial to me at first was networking. The Entrepreneurship Institute showed me a bunch of events to participate in, showed me a lot of places where I could pitch, showed me potential mentors. And so over time, I've been able to have 3 business mentors, and I'm working on an advisory board of 8 people who kind of guide the direction and future, of Date Discover. And this all came from, I'd say, one of the people on the board of advisors is going to be my dad. He's worked in the tech industry, and he's someone who's very familiar with recruiting and stuff like that. And so I found that very beneficial. The other 7 people I didn't know a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was people that I would go to events and say, wow, that's very interesting. I enjoyed your presentation. Or, hey, I saw you on LinkedIn the other day and I appreciated your post. I would love to get your input, maybe go out to lunch sometime. And it was just opportunities that would maybe be awkward, but saying I'm going to go out there because I know that a conversation with this person would be a benefit to me. Absolutely.
Hmm. Yes. How did you really work on those networking skills? Because when I think of networking, I always have a I always have this horrible idea in my head of going to conferences, like trying to psych myself up to go to a conference or to go to an event, to try to find someone to talk to, and ultimately just being the wallflower who doesn't talk to anyone. But
Yeah.
what have been some of the things that have helped you out most as you've sort of developed in networking?
I think when I first started, I would say I was very much in a similar position. I came from not having any network at all, and I go to these events, and, I'm the guy that's eating all the snacks, hanging by the wall, and if someone comes up to me, I'll introduce myself. And even to this day, I'm not a big fan of large gatherings because what I feel like I specialize a lot is very well is the one-on-one connections.
Mm-hmm.
I love being able to just sit down and connect and just say, "Oh, that's so awesome. Tell me about your story." And I would love not to hear myself talk for 20 minutes, please, because I talk all the time. And those are the conversations that I love to have. But then going to these um, these bigger things, I had one thing. I always would just have that pit in my stomach, like, oh crap. We all do. We all get a little nervous going to these events. And then I figured out I need to do something hard before I get to this. So that way I can say it's so much easier to talk to these people. So what I started doing more recently is that I started taking ice baths. And I take them out in a reservoir, which in Utah, there's been snow on the ground for the last little bit. It's very freezing, but it's like if I'm in there in 36, 38-degree water, and I'm in there for however period of time I set my goal for, like if I did that, one, I'm going to feel freaking amazing afterwards because physically there's a there the there are benefits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that I survived very extreme conditions, I can go talk to someone and have maybe that awkward conversation for a second. Maybe I just point out something about their tie, or maybe I saw their name tag and say, it's cool that you spell your name with a C, but Caleb with a K is a lot cooler,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes I put myself at these awkward situations, and I've had moments where people kind of like, haha, yeah, whatever. But most of the time, when you go to these events, people also want to talk with you, and they don't know how to approach it. And so that's something that's helped me a lot. Just knowing that one, I already did the hard thing today, and two, other people are looking forward to talking to you. You're just too nervous to understand that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's something I never really thought of, but like, other people are at networking events to also ideally network and meet people, and like when you are the wallflower, the person just standing back, it can often feel like, oh, everyone else is like already talking to people, like they're all meeting people, they're all used to this by now. And it's hard sometimes it's easy to forget that, oh yeah, other people also feel this, and a lot of people would be happy to have someone come up to them to say, hey, I'm awkward at these kind of events, but I want to come and get to know people. So I thought you seemed like a nice person to come and get to know. And yeah, that's something I never really considered with networking events. But yeah, that seems like just a, a great idea. And who knows what might come of it. Sometimes you might crash and burn, but you might also get some great friends out of it and build an awesome network from it.
Absolutely. One thought I'd like to add that I've never had a crash and burn be so bad that it's like I'm never showing my face around here. I might, get a little embarrassed for sure. Like people don't want to talk to me or they feel like I interrupted something. All right, I can move on from that. I can go to another wall and then start a conversation with somebody else. I I'm really, from your perspective of a wallflower, it's hard to go out to someone, but I love seeing those wallflowers sometimes because it's like I know they're ready to have those conversations, and if I'm not finding someone else to talk to, I know that there's always a wallflower that's going to a conversation with a wallflower that's going to benefit the both of us.
Hmm. Now, the only problem with that is if you suddenly run out of walls to go and run and hide from uh, crashing and burning too much. But, anyways, uh, so networking for sure, very useful skill in business. Even as someone who's a solopreneur, having like having a network of people who I can go to and say, well, I guess even for stuff like this, it's hard to find people to interview for a podcast. So having a network can help out with that. It doesn't matter if you're on the project manager side where you have a bunch of people you're working with, or if you're on these more solopreneur side, because no matter what in business, you need customers. Like, that's sort of essential, and a network can help out with so much of that. So, stepping back from networking, were there any unexpected skills that you ended up developing, like as part of your business journey so far?
I would say, coming to mind, I think the financial scrappiness is something that really surprised me. So I can count off the top of my head about how much money I put into this business myself, like coming out of my own wallet. And so for the year and a half I've had this business, I've been developing this business, I've spent a total of $135, which is not a lot at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, $100 from that actually came from donuts and pizza for the team, right? There's like my wife didn't forgive me when she found out I bought a little bit more expensive donuts rather than going to Smith's or Walmart or something like that. But
How dare you buy those
yeah,
expensive donuts for your team? How
I
dare
know,
you?
I know. That's why I use my private debit card so she doesn't see stuff like that anymore. But when I was talking about grants earlier, that's still the route I take now, right? So last semester, so we're talking August to December 2023, I won $5,000 in grants. And that's gone on with my whole team and everything. So I have a team of five, not including me. We've spent about $3,000 of that grant so far. And then we had another competition where we won judge's favorite and we won another $1,000 here at UVU at VentureCon.
Mm-hmm.
And then this semester, so like a week ago, I just won another $5,000 grant for pretty much just continuing to do my thing, which I am so grateful for. And without UVU, in my personal case, and the opportunities that came from, the networking and stuff like that, I don't think I would have my business today. I think I would give up and say I'm spending too much. Development costs too much. There's so much going on. But being able to say, okay, since I'm so scrappy, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to not spend a dollar of my own, and I'm going to find those other opportunities.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Like, certainly, the skill of being able to like be scrappy and perhaps step out of your comfort zone is maybe a good way to phrase it, or perhaps a better way to do it is to be able to look for new opportunities in a space.
Yep.
Because certainly, I know with every single business class I've taken, I don't know if any one of them has talked about like grants as a financing route for starting a business. Like, I maybe heard about it once in a lecture series thing,
Right.
but yeah. Um,
It does make me sad. I think, no one's journey is perfect. There is no right journey. But I just remember being so scared to, 23-year-old Caleb going to a bank and say, give me X amount of money, not knowing if I was able to pay that back. And then knowing I didn't have enough of a product to be investable. And I was like, what in the world am I going to do?
mhm. Yeah, it's incredible what options there are out there that just go unheard of because for some reason people don't advertise them or people don't just they're just not talked about. So
Yep.
I'm glad to hear a bit more about like business grant stuff from you because that's just an option that I didn't hear all that much about before now. So it's moving more into the challenges space of things, like outside of the financial challenges that you've talked a bit about. Tell me a bit about some of the unexpected challenges you faced while starting your business and what some of the lessons you learned along the way were.
I guess a couple things. One, and I'm sure you probably heard this before, be very cautious when it comes to starting a business with a family or friend. Because when there's money on the table and a lot of other risk going on, last thing you want to do is be yelling at someone who's very near and dear to you. I remember trying to get my wife to hop in with me, and she designed a logo, and I remember I wasn't able to use that logo because of copyright, which was a bummer. I had one other name for date discovery. It used to be called Great Date. And so my wife designed the logo. She was excited to do social media. And then we got the notice saying that we couldn't publish any content because Great Date was already taken by somebody else. And I said, "All right, I'm sorry, babe. We tried. Like, we can't use your logo." And she was so upset with me. And to this day, she still doesn't like the logo we use now because it's not one that she's made. And while this is a very simple and light story, I've seen many other people, they'll invest in their brother's business, they'll help out a family member. And then sometimes those opportunities don't go as well as you hope, and everybody gets burned.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm very grateful that I had such a light case of that. I would say there are business friends and there are your actual friends. And, that may be a little stark, but there are people that I know well enough that I would go into a business with them, but I won't tell them maybe about the day to day, what's going on in my life and stuff like that. There's just different spheres of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I would absolutely agree
I'm
with you
just,
there. Is uh, I know so I've had some opportunities to work with family members on some business stuff. My dad briefly owned the Duluth Candy Company in Duluth, Minnesota,
oh, wow.
and we would like on occasion when we would come back to Minnesota to visit, he would be working at the candy company, and sometimes we would have to go and work with him there. And I do not like working with my dad when it comes to working the candy store. Absolutely cannot stand it. Love him, love that he loved it, but that was not a good place for us to work together in. Uh, Certainly, he was probably fine with it, but personally, I was not. But on the other hand, my brother loved it. My brother did a great job with it, and like, that's just another example of sometimes working the family and business, it can go well, or it can also go kind of bad. Certainly, nothing bad ever really came from it. It's just a personal preference thing of wasn't a fan of working
Right.
with him in a business sense. And I feel like you touched on something else that was really important there, and that was this idea of compartmentalization, where you have your normal friends and you have what well, you call them the business friends, I call them work friends, where these are people you talk to at work because they are there and you talk to them because they're there, you happen to be around them, but you don't you don't talk to them outside of work really.
Yeah.
It's like very compartmentalized, where they might hear bits and pieces about your life outside of work, but really it's like you're there to work, you're there to do this thing, and that's the business, the job, or whatever it is. That's what really bonds you and brings you together. And I feel like having that separation can make life so much easier because you know that okay, if I'm around my normal friends, I don't have to talk business. This is my time to step away, to relax for a bit. I don't have to think about it. But if your work friends and your normal friends are the same people, then it can be very hard to separate like normal life from business.
Right. And I think of for example, there's always the example of like the dad asked you to do like help out outside for like 12 hours of unpaid labor. And the reason why I go there, it's like um, I guess that kind of goes back to what we were saying a second ago. But having the ability to say, "You're my dad. I'm here to help," like versus like, "Okay, this is work and this is not very fun." But I guess going back to what you're saying right now is, I will talk to maybe my work buddies that, hey, over the weekend I went skiing. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, I ate this for breakfast, I went skiing, and I came back and I said this. Because they're not important details. They're not details that it's going to be better for me to share, and I will not enrich their lives. If they want to talk about skiing, that's great. That's an awesome opportunity. Um, but I think that with work friends, you kind of have to have more of a, I wouldn't say transactional relationship, but you have to think about if you want to have great conversations with them, you have to find ways that will benefit both of you.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think people are going to enjoy me talking about date discover all the time if it brings them no benefit. That's why I really like the approach of like, hey, this is what I'm working on. I would love to get your opinion on it as well.
Hmm.
Most of the time when I do LinkedIn, reaching out to like people on LinkedIn, if I just say, "Hey, I appreciated your stuff," they're not going to give me the time of day. But when I say, "Hey, thank you for your content. It's been really helpful for me. I would love to get your input, and maybe I'll take you out to lunch." Right? We're all humans. We love food in some capacity or some sort like that. But I think um, know how to treat whatever friend you have by your side, right? Like true friends, like they'd be more than happy to talk to you for an hour and just be there because they're a good friend. Your work friends are like, I'm not getting paid enough to hear all this yip yap.
They're not your therapists.
Yeah, they're not your therapist, and neither should your friends be. Um, I think it's just you compartmentalizing, as you put it quite exactly. You need to know how to always have a conversation that benefits both parties. And that looks very differently between your actual friends, your family, and your work friends.
Hmm. I would 100% agree with you there. What have been some other challenges you've faced as you've been working on growing your business? So we've talked a bit about financial side of things, the partnership side of things. Is there anything else that really comes to mind of like, oh, this is an unexpected challenge I faced while starting up Date Discover?
Yeah, so when I first hired my team, and the way it works is that I actually didn't source them. I had someone else source them for me. And the way that my team was looking is that I had one project manager who was not me, it was somebody else. I had four developers and one person working on the UI UX, user experience, user interface. And everything was going really well at first, and everyone was kind of on top of things. And then I sometimes couldn't come to all the meetings. I couldn't come to when they're all collaborating, and so I really relied on my project manager. And I said, "Hey, so and so, I would really appreciate if you can give me the notes for today. I'd love to get everyone's input. Here's some thoughts I wanted you to share." And I would send it, and then it wouldn't be open until like 3 or 4 days later, and they're saying, "Sorry, I just saw this." And then at some point, it's saying, "Hey, sorry, just saw this. I wasn't even at the meeting anyway, so don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Well, that's not what I want to hear. Like, you're not getting." And I don't want to sound like some jerk when I say this, but like, you're getting paid to kind of be the chief right now,
You're
right?
getting paid
You're
to be at those meetings that I can't be at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's a lot of things I'm still working on, and I need to rely on you. And I wouldn't have response for days on end. I would say, "Hey, how are we doing with our money? Are we out of money yet? Do I need to go?" And the reason why that's important is like, do I need to go find other ways to grab more to earn more money? And if I didn't get those responses for days or weeks, it's like it's not an effective pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I would go to meetings, I would have somebody say, "We didn't do anything this week because we weren't told what to do." And it's like, all right, okay, maybe I could do a little bit better, but there's clearly one person that either could have approached me or, um, we could have worked out a solution to that. And so I was like, dang, like I feel bad. Do I fire this person? Do I just have like a sit down and say, okay, this is going on. I need us to work better as a team. You and I to work better, and you to work better with the team. Because the way I see it is that I hate pointing fingers at someone, saying, you did this. This is all your fault because of this. We couldn't do this. But I would say, hey, uh, how's everything been going? Not going so well? Okay, please tell me about that. What can I do to help? And then those are conversations that I enjoy because I'm able to find out what's going on and then what I can do to improve the situation. And unfortunately, those conversations we weren't having even though I tried. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, my date discover is not progressing. We're not doing anything. And if we don't do anything, then we lose any funding that we've secured pretty much up to this point. And so I'm at an event pitching the business, and I say, okay, project manager, I need you to take care of our meeting today, and let's just square everything away. And so the meeting starts, and he read it, and I'm like, okay, I think we're good. My team calls me and says, hey, project manager isn't here. What do you want us to do? And I'm like, I seriously cannot be on the phone. Like, I'm about to present to like 300 people in a second. Like, and then pretty much right when that call comes, project manager says, hey, I quit. Good luck. Not much I can do for you. Sorry it didn't work out. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, what is going on?
Wow.
And, I'm bummed because we had such a good camaraderie at the beginning. And, I won't speak bad to their abilities. It's just there wasn't enough of a presence to make a difference for the team. And that's what really made me sad. And so, one thing I've learned from it is, hiring and retaining talent is so important. When in my case, as someone who's not a solopreneur, like I cannot do these things on my own. I recognize my limitations. I need to find people who can surpass my limitations and make something better than what I ever could. And I became my own project manager. I won't say that I'm doing the best job in the world with all the other stuff going on, but it's helped me to come understand like, you know, I am capable of things, but if things get hard, I can also reach out to other people. And thankfully, I should be getting some relief in a little bit, which I'm grateful for. But I gotta say that's just a really big challenge is making everyone feel comfortable and that they have a place and what they're doing is important. And I feel like retrospectively, did I do a good job of that? I don't know. I'm sure trying it right now, and I hope I continue to, but time still will stand true.
Wow. Yeah, communication stuff. That is big in any business, and props on you for seeing just seeing and being able to acknowledge that hey, there are some issues going on here. As I know it's like this is not anything that I have any experience in. Like I don't know the hiring and firing realm. I've heard bits and pieces from people who have had to hire and fire people, like had to supervise and work over them. Sure, I may have done some leadership positions in the past, but that seems like a rough time trying to manage a project manager who is sort of doing their job. Like maybe not always, and certainly they're doing something sometimes, but yeah, that really sounds rough to me. But props on you for stepping up to the plate to fill that position.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to whatever opportunities come from it. I though I love being busy, I don't always love um, when it starts to take away from other things I hold important.
Mhm. Speaking of keeping you busy, so a lot of people like to talk about work-life balance, and like it's a strangely popular idea. Which, maybe not strangely popular. People like to separate work from play, and as you've been an entrepreneur, how have you noticed like a work-life balance shift? Because I know certainly for me, like, well, for one, I've always been a bit more of a workaholic, but like definitely my work life quote unquote balance is heavily weighed in favor of, oh, I'd rather just be working right now. And there's always something to do, always something to keep busy with. So how has like the idea of work life balance been implemented in your life?
Yeah, so it gets a little tricky when you have someone else you gotta watch out for. In my case, being my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And last couple semesters, I so my first semester at UVU, I took 12 credits, and I was kind of always behind on assignments. I was busy on other stuff, working on the business. Had two jobs at the time, not as busy, but I just didn't have the great management going down. And then I decided, okay, 12 credits stunk. How about I just do 18? And I remember just thinking, holy poop, I'm going from 12 to 18. That's like a 150% increase. And actually, I got less busy, oddly enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is just because I knew exactly from when I got up to when I went to bed, there's always something that needed to be done. And granted, I play my video games, I do fun stuff as well, but it's like once you kind of have that mentality of, hey, I'll just take care of this in a little bit. I only have 12 credits. I don't have that much going on. To having, hey, I always have something going on, and I should always be aware. And so having a calendar has made a big difference. Having a wife who remembers events a lot better than I do makes a huge difference. But also just reminding yourself why you're busy has made a big difference. Like I said, like having the 18, I always knew I should be doing something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's helped me out tremendously. So since this is my last semester now, I'm at 12 credits. But I think with all the jobs going on, I think that's a little bit more understandable. But I just remember I had 12, then 18, then 18, then 17, and now I'm at 12. And I'm like, I'm just going to have to stay busy in other ways and be on top of what's going on every single time.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you took advantage of something called Parkinson's law, where essentially people will people's time will naturally be filled with, so how do I say this properly? When you have tasks to do, your the tasks you do will naturally fill the time you allow them to have. So say
Oh,
you have like 2 months to finish a project, most people are going to use all 2 months on that project. Compare that to someone who's more busy, you when you're taking 18 credits and doing multiple jobs and running a business. Time is much more of a premium. Therefore, you have less time to allot to each thing. So you would tend to be busier and typically like you would still finish everything you had to do, but you do it on a much more scrunched time frame. And I know this is something that I've personally seen as well, where for some reason, whenever I'm the busiest, that's when I decide to stack more things onto the plate. Where I say,
yep.
oh, yeah, I'm already in school, I work a part time job, I have some businesses that I'm doing. How about I pick up this other project as well? And then through some black magic that's called priority management and scheduling and doing all of that, somehow everything works out just fine. And it's mostly because like if you give something a certain amount of time to dedicate to that task, you will finish that thing within that amount of time, almost certainly. I know I've seen that for myself more than once.
I think it's funny how you called it the black magic that's called prioritization and stuff like that. I'm glad you labeled yours out. For me, it's still black magic. I don't know how I make it happen. I'm very grateful that it's worked out for me so far, and I hope I get to develop to a point where I have my black magic labeled out like yours. Parkinson's law is that what you said earlier? I'm
Yep,
gonna have to
that's what
look
it's
into
called.
that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's some fascinating stuff. The two big principles that I feel like most people need to acknowledge when they're trying to get stuff done is Parkinson's law, where if you want to get something done sooner, just give yourself a shorter amount of time to do it, and the Pareto principle of the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the work can be, well, 80% of the result will come from 20% of the work. So, yeah, if you can take advantage
Yeah.
of those two things, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and a lot of effort. Just figuring out
I'm an
what those are.
Eisenhower matrix of Yeah, I'm an Eisenhower matrix of importance myself.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't dabbled with that realm at all, but I might take a look at it. So, what have been some of the best and worst parts about owning your own business?
I would say um finding bless you. Finding out that sometimes your idea is not as great as you think it is. I remember one time I presented this idea to a bunch of potential investors and just really successful entrepreneurs in Utah. And I thought I established a good rapport with these people at our meeting and stuff like that. And I just had one guy say, "Your idea absolutely sucks. I would never invest in it." And I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, that's tough. Like, he didn't give me any criticism as to why. He
Mm-hmm.
just said, "Nope, I'm not going to put any money near that. It's a terrible idea. You're on your own."
Investors are
And
brutal.
yeah, and so this investor, I thought I already established a rapport with, and um, the venture capital firm that he works for um, focuses specifically kind of on businesses like mine, and so that was really tough for me. But at that same time, I had another guy in that group say, "Okay, I know what you just heard is valid. And if you think about giving up because of what you just heard, then just give up now because it's not an easy path. Well, I'll tell you what, I will pay good money for you to come back to this meeting here in a year after making money, and I will buy a shirt with his face on it and say, 'I told you so.'" And so it's like I went from like the lowest of lows thinking, wow, maybe this isn't a viable product at all to thinking, no, there are some people who don't either like my product or they don't see the use for it. And that's okay, right? Like I need to understand my product is not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. Like I would love everyone to use it, but realistically I need to find the right people and get them excited. And at that time he's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really big challenge, like hearing the no, I would never put any money into this, to hearing, no, he's not interested. He wouldn't use it. And maybe there's some reason to that. And I can definitely recover from that. So that was a good opportunity for me to go from like the lowest of lows to, you know, we're not over yet. We're not done. No reason to give up now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. Like, well, the saying goes, the product made for everyone is a product made for no one. And,
Well said.
yep. So, gonna start winding down a bit here, but with a few bonus questions, if you would. So,
Yep.
first of all, uh, one that I like to wrap up the main meat with is, you're talking to me. I assume that we're gonna frame something here. So, assume that I know absolutely nothing about business, but I have this idea in my head, and I come to you, Kaleb. I say, Kaleb, I've got this business idea in my head, but I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know what to do with it. I know absolutely nothing about business. What would you what would you recommend to someone like me who knows absolutely nothing about business to go from nothing to starting up my first like starting up my first business idea or giving a good whack at it, because we
Yeah.
know how many business ideas like fail right away. But assuming that it's not going to.
Yeah. So one thing I like to ask is, I don't like to use the word passionate because sometimes if people don't feel like super, super passionate, they just think it's a dud. I say, how excited are you for this product or this idea?
Hmm.
And I think there's a difference between passionate and excitement. Like excitement, it's something that you're filled with hope and you want to do whatever it takes to get it done. Passionate, I think it's more of a grind mentality. It takes away maybe some of the joy and you know the hope that comes from it. So I say, how excited are you for this idea to happen? And if people will say not very excited, I say, okay, we can look into that. But if you're not very excited about it, I'm not going to tell you to put all this effort in.
Hmm.
But if you are really excited, just run as fast as you can for as far as you can. And why I recommend people, because of my personal experience, I say, let's go find you somebody to talk to. Let's help form your journey and what that could look like. And so I am a complete and utter um, zealot for the Entrepreneurship Institute at UVU, um, because I was like in your situation. I That's exactly how I was. I've never had a business before. I had no idea what to do. I just have an idea. And going to someone who has a little bit more expertise, saying, I love your excitement. I love your enthusiasm. Let's keep this rolling.
Hmm.
I think with the solopreneur route, I would say that's great that you're excited, but sometimes if you're not extremely motivated, it's hard to keep that excitement up.
Hmm.
And so I would try to help them find as many resources as possible, and I would just want them to dive in. If it's a physical product, we at the Entrepreneurship Institute hold prototyping workshops, 3 every semester, right? We want people to test out their ideas and learn what a prototype looks like, or maybe have a breakfast with investors, or there's just so many good opportunities that I feel like people aren't aware of because they just don't put themselves into those things. They just say, this is an idea, and then they just don't know how to develop it or to grow it, and it just dies. It's like a seed. If you don't water it, you don't take the proper time and attention, it's not going to work.
Hmm. Absolutely. So from what you said, it sounds like you have a very who, not how mentality, where you figure out who can I direct this person to help them get to where they need to go. And I think that's an awesome mentality to have, because business ideas can range so drastically, where business advice from one person could be totally the wrong advice based on like someone's brand new business idea. But if you can connect them to the right people, you can absolutely change the way that they do business, or take them from 0 to 1. Just get them started on the right foot. So
Hmm.
that's awesome. Okay, moving on to some bonus questions of, well, what has been some of your favorite businesses or tools that you've interacted with?
Hmm. One I've actually really liked from as a project manager standpoint. It's called ClickUp.
All right.
A- And yeah, CLICKUP, just one word.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does really well is show you and show your team everything that is going on, and it does a great job of delegation. And I think that's great because I don't necessarily have the time as the business owner to say, I want all these nitty gritty things taken care of. ClickUp, all I have to do is say, here's a project, and then people can assign themselves roles, or they can write out a description of how they're going to resolve that issue. And it's been super beneficial to me because it's not, I had to be in a meeting to see all this stuff happen. I can see it in real time and see how people are taking care and we're just able to work with each other. Just collaboration. That's my favorite word, just collaboration. And when you're able to see what everyone else is doing, what's still on the board, what's being taken care of, it just streamlines the process. When they're spending more time working on something they're passionate about, they're excited about, and not dredging through the trenches of logistics, it makes it so much easier. So I'm a really big proponent for ClickUp. Chat GBT is cool. What I really love is Google Bard. And I've been trying to find a way to make Google Bard happen in my business.
Mm-hmm.
Google Bard is like Chat GBT on steroids because it's connected to everything on Google. So if I ever look up something, I can pull up references, I can pull up real-time things. Like when I was first trying a prototype out for Date Discover, I was using Google Bard because it gave me real-time date ideas
Mm-hmm.
and events that were happening. And we had to pivot from that. But I just remember being so impressed with the capabilities of Google Bard over ChatGPT. One thing I will say as a caveat to Google Bard is that sometimes when you do math, it just does not impress me. So that would be my warning. But overall, it's a very capable software. But those are kind of the two biggest things that I've been uh, most impressed with as of recent.
Mm-hmm. If you like Google Bard and like that Chat GPT like interaction where you can you can do more natural conversations in your searches, one tool that I would recommend to you to check out is called Perplexity AI, where it's the best way I can describe it is ChatGPT hooked up to the internet, where it can do more live searches but have more natural language processing similar to ChatGPT. So,
You said perplexity.ai.
yep,
Okay.
yeah, that's
Duly
one of my go-to
noted.
search tools. It's been very helpful. Um, throughout this episode, we've been talking about skills that have been helpful for you as you've been starting a business, but like to also flip that around to talk a bit about what are some of the skills or some of the things that you developed in the world of business that have helped more outside of the world of business.
I mean, definitely becoming a better communicator is one thing. Um, one thing that I've actually really enjoyed being in the business world, you get to meet tons of different people and you just find out so many cool things. And one thing that's really come from it is cuisine. Like I love when people talk about their favorite dish and stuff like that. Like for, and I just love cooking something that's not like a burrito. And I'm not hating on anyone who loves their burritos. I just love cooking differently.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife for Christmas, she gave me a Chinese wok so I can prepare more authentic Asian cuisine. She gave me a pan that I would use for Japanese omelets. And it's like, yeah, this happened because of business, because I saw something at a meeting or someone who I had a very interesting conversation talked about this type of food or this method of preparation, and it's like I've really enjoyed just cooking because of it and developing that skill. So it's not something I you ever see in the business. I'm not going to bring a Japanese omelet to an investor
I don't
unless
know.
they
Maybe
ask
that could be
politely.
your next pitch tactic.
we'll,
This is
we'll
one
have
of
to
our
see about
sample
that.
dates. Practicing cooking Japanese cuisine. Please give it a try.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we'll have to add to my pitch. Not a terrible idea. But, I think it's been more of a benefit to my wife and I at home than it has been in the business field.
Still, that's awesome. And last but certainly not least, are there any last pieces of advice that you have for our aspiring entrepreneurs?
Your journey, I saw a phrase yesterday, and it's like, do not compare your beginning to someone's middle. And I think it's really true. Like, I can think of all my competitors, and I say, dang, they're raking in the dough. They're doing such a great job. And I have I don't have that much going on for me. And it's like, yeah, but I just started. I started this year or last year, or I started today. And that's awesome that I just started. And that should be celebrated. It should not be demoralizing that a company that's been around for 5, 10, 15 years is at a different stage because they should. They've worked hard. And I think that should be encouragement that if they've been able to go at it and work hard, what's stopping me with a better idea or a better method from overtaking them in who knows how long?
I 100% agree with that advice. Like, definitely, as I've started this podcast, I've had to remind myself that, remember, you are not competing against the podcasts that you've listened to today that have been around for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that have a couple hundred episodes. You're competing with them 3, 4, 5 years ago when they were just starting. If you want a good benchmark, look at where these companies just started. If you really want to compare it against someone else, but even then, it's best to just compare with where did I start yesterday? Where am I today?
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
it's it's amazing what can happen when you put your nose to the grindstone and give it your best shot. So Kaleb, if people want to hear more from you, want to see more of your work, where can they go? What can they check out? Or is there anything else that you want to plug?
Um, I'll plug I'll plug in my LinkedIn, Caleb Kaleb, last name Cheek, like the one in your face, Cheek. Um, I do have the Date Discover Instagram, which uh, I started myself, but I'm hiring some marketing professionals to take care of that because that's not my forte.
Social
So
media
if you would
sucks.
follow, yeah, social media sucks, and that's not my niche, and that's okay. But if you want to follow Date Discover, so Date Discover, all one word, I'd really appreciate that. Um, I think those are kind of the two big ways I'd really appreciate anyone's feedback or, um, participation in my life story.
All right. Well, Kaleb, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here today.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast catching up with you.
Okay. If you ever see me around campus, feel free to stop by, say hi.
Okay, swing by the Entrepreneurship Institute sometime too, all right?
Sure, we'll do. If you enjoyed this episode of Cast of All Trades, I have 3 super easy things I'd like you to do that would mean the world to me. 1, subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss out on our next episode. 2, while you're in your podcast app of choice, give this show a 5-star review. It helps us reach more people and in turn helps us change lives through generalism. And 3, share this episode with a friend or two, someone you think would really gain something from this show. Word of mouth is the best way to help a podcast grow, and if your friend likes the show, they'll thank you for introducing them to it. It's a win-win. And with all that said, best of luck, tradesmen. I'll talk to y'all later.